First up is Ken Mays.
Despite the sensational claim of a spike in fees as published in the Press Enterprise, it's about time that developers and those wanting to be new residents pay their fair share. For too long, the developers have been allowed to build without providing the necessary infrastructure to support high-density housing. In my mind, anything more than 2 units per acre is high density. When it rains, the current tract homes do well. It's those that chose to remain rural that pay the price downstream with flooding. Speaking of which, currently 2 of the 3 parks lie in flood channels, with a third parkland divided by drainage courses. All because the county before and the city currently are allowing substandard infrastructure with below adequate fees. All because the developers have whined. Collector roads have been allowed to contain driveways, rendering them dangerous drag strips, necessitating the installation of worthless lumps of asphalt and unnecessary stop signs, hindering the free flow of traffic. It's bad enough we have to dodge the holes on the rarely maintained streets now. The developers want to add more traffic, more runoff, more bodies to an already overwhelmed community. Traffic circles need to be studied in lieu of lights. The next step after this appropriate increase in fees is to implement an art tax on the commercial parcels, to beautify those oh-so-boring parking lots, and a bedroom tax to provide for the changing landscape of how people live. As adult children are living at home much longer, it's not 2 adults and 1 child per room in a home anymore. It's 5 or 6 adults in a home with their own children, creating more traffic from the same homes than in the past. There's also the sad fact that these adult children are having children while living with their parents, further taxing the parks, trails, and other infrastructures. Developers should want to build in Wildomar, not because it's cheap, but because it's a nice place to live. Thank you.
Next speaker is Nathan Miller.
Mayor, members of the City Council, my name is Nathan Miller with the Riverside County Building Industry Association. It's a pleasure to be here in front of you, and I want to start by saying that I appreciated the opportunity to work with your staff, and Dan York, he spent some time, met with me to discuss the plan, but we do need to say that BIA is officially opposed to the fee increase. Developers do want to build here. Wildomar is a great place to live. But there is also the economics of, can you build given the price range of what people are willing to pay, and can that be absorbed? And that's one element of what I'm going to discuss. But one of the things we've noticed is in your park improvement costs, you've got Wildomar at $420,000 an acre, which is significantly higher than other areas. Rancho Cucamonga is at $380,000. It's $40,000 more than that. Perupa Community Services District, $260,000 an acre. It's $400,000 more than that. City of Corona is $280,000. City of Redlands, $325,000. So it is a little concerning that the study would say that Wildomar requires $420,000 an acre for park improvement costs. We don't feel that this is a business-friendly approach to solving the city's issues. Whether or not those issues exist with regard to the parks, it's debatable. Is this desired? Is it ideal? It would be a great plan, but it's unaffordable at this time. Developers and builders are the #1 job creator in Riverside County. A plan like this, developers, there's builders, developers, contractors, various product suppliers, a workforce from development, and then of course there's longer-term commercial development and opportunities and the workforce that creates, and they would all suffer at the loss of development that this plan would create. It decreases the land value of all existing homeowners surrounding the region. Permit numbers pre and post your last dip increase are interesting, because you were building at an average of about 700 to 600 homes a year, but after your last dip increase, you went down to 3. I believe you're at 22 this year, and it could potentially be a coincidence, but it occurred right after your last dip increase in January 2014. Last time you increased the DIF, there was a promised phase-in from staff that somehow didn't make it to the staff report, and it wasn't honored in good faith. We didn't appreciate that at the time, but we do appreciate the willingness to extend the implementation of this to January of 2016 should it be approved. The market is not inelastic in the building community, absolutely. If you increase the DIF for $3,000, that translates to $5,000 to $6,000 that's going to be passed on to the homeowners. A few $1,000s makes a huge difference as to whether or not it can be absorbed and whether or not somebody is willing to buy it. There's also issues with parks with regard to the drought and whether or not...
Right, Nathan, you've gone past your 3 minutes there.
I understand. I appreciate your time. We do believe that we're a significant stakeholder in this issue that's going to have a lasting impact on this community and whether or not you're actually going to have any activity moving forward. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
That's all the speakers I have.
All right. With that, I'll close the public hearing portion. Council discussion?
Well, I'll say something and nobody else will say anything.
Go ahead, Bob.
Okay.
You weren't here, so you go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm happy to see this developer fee proposal. We don't have to build all the houses this year. There's no problem building the houses because they're going to come sometime or another and in the future. I don't have to have special rates to make sure I get more houses this year when I know these houses are going to come later. So that's one thought I have on it. What was your other thought, Bob? Well, I could have another thought on I'm glad to see that we're providing for the traffic lights the way we are, because remember, I've spoken many times on not having traffic lights in some places I thought they should have been, and this provides sort of a funding base for that, which is one of the, so I'm happy to see that. The parks, we all know that we started out with a large land, that some people didn't feel like we needed parks, at least when I first moved here. There was a thought we didn't need the parks, but it's clear as we've developed that we really do need these parks, that those of us that have large parcels aren't the only people in the community. Okay, that's all I have.
Well, as I said last time, I'm for it, and I understand and I hear you. I heard your comments, but they're building in the other cities, and their prices are higher than ours, and so I don't see why our city should be shortchanged. And we need all that infrastructure, absolutely. We needed it all along, and so going forward, we just have to do it.
Again, this is a really, really tough decision for me. I see both sides of it. You add $5,000 to the price of a house for a developer. A developer is building 100, 200 houses, 300 houses, just depends on the builder. Right now, we only have one builder in town, and he's only sold 22 of his 82 units. We have others coming up, yes. Do we need everything that's there? Absolutely. Dan has done a beautiful plan. He's laid it all out for all of us. My answer to Dan was that I wish there was a way that all of the residents could share in this, because we're deciding whether our kids can buy a house or our grandkids can buy a house. That's what it means. If it's $5,000 to the developer, it's going to get passed on. He may pay it today, but your kids are going to pay it tomorrow, and your grandkids are going to pay it the next day. Yes, we're higher than Temecula and Murrieta. Their houses are $50,000 and $100,000 more than ours. People are higher based income in those areas than they are here. As with Lake Elsinore, they're a little lower in income. Their houses are a little lower in price. I would love to say I'm 100% behind this. I'm not. I told Dan, you know, if it could be shared some way, and I said, that's a wish. I haven't seen a genie in Wildomar yet. But I cannot support this unless we phase it in. Maybe even just a 3-year period. I think the builders need time. The recovery isn't here. You know, I do this every day of my life. I see what houses sell and I see what they sell for. The recovery isn't here. I see how hard it is to qualify. Kenny mentioned in these homes, there are kids living with their parents, having kids. Yes, there are, many of them, because they can't buy a house in this market. So I can't support this unless we can phase it in somehow.
And it comes down to me.
Yep.
Well, I have kids living with me, and I have grandbabies in my house, because my kids can't get work, because California is just the most obnoxious place to find work in all of America. They're qualified, they have degrees, they can't find work. So they work odd jobs, they work for me, but I'm a cheapskate, so that's just the way it is. But, you know, it's a sad state of affairs, because we buy our house, we want it to go up. Well, you know what? That's not always the case here. We buy our house, it should stay, you know, I can see little increases, but we all saw the market, how it went out of control and people were buying $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 homes, and they didn't even have the money to pay for them in the first place. I see it as a negative with the numbers, because my kids won't be able to buy a house here in Wildomar. They can't afford a $400,000 home. It's not possible, you know? I live in Realville, and I'm upset because of the prices. Yeah, we do need the transportation things, and yes, it's gonna come through from the developers when they're building these things. I went over with the parks deal, you know, I had a hard time going from the amount of money we had before to the 65 or 6,800 or 6,900 is what it is now. That was a hard thing, but I understood some of the things had changed. TUMP and all those different things have changed. But see, my problem here is it's going to be $12,000, and that doesn't include school bonds and everything else. And by the time you're said and done, your house is costing $50,000 more than it should just to try to even get the thing started building on it. And I don't like that. I think it's wrong, and I think the community is suffering for it. And our next generations can't even live in our own towns where they were born and raised, and that is a pathetic thing. And everybody's all excited, oh, my house goes up, my house is increased by this much money, and I'm gonna be able to cash out. Well, thank you, cash outers. You know, you're cashing out and leaving all the rest of our kids with the crap that you left us with. And I'm one of those guys that says, you know, enough is enough. And your house isn't worth $600,000. I don't care what kind of gold you put on the floor. And it just irritates me, and I'm not for this at all, you know. I think it's too much money. I would have gone maybe to 9,000 or something, but to jump to 12, I'm not gonna go for it. It's 74% increase, and I can't stomach that. And you know what? We're getting parks. We're a city, we're like a business. As we get the commercial guys in here, we're gonna have the money. We'll spend our own money. Not the poor little family that's trying to move in here and get into a house, and they can't afford to live here because we wanna have a prettier park. That's just nonsense. We're getting property donated to us, we have acreage. It doesn't have to be the Taj Mahal on our parks. It could be a walking park, it could be a rustic park, I don't care. But to throw in the $3,900 each house, and the rest of the people in the city have sat here and didn't pay their fair share. Let's get back to the fair share thing. We've all been here a long time. And I think it's a responsibility of a city and the government that's sitting here will make it commercial friendly. We'll get that income off of the commercial, the sales tax and all those things, and spend it wisely and do these things slowly. If you phase it in slowly, yeah, I could probably go along with this, but I'm not gonna go and pop these numbers on anybody because it's
Commercial
too
won't
much.
come without the people.
No, I understand what the commercial does. Yes, I understand that you have to have rooftops in order to do it, but I don't like the amount of the cost of the rooftop. It's too high.
I agree.
It's just way too high for these kids. They're not gonna be able to come here. And unless the jobs are gonna come here, these people aren't gonna come here either. Because, let's face it, you have all these buildings sitting down here in Marion, Temecula, they're all the commercial units and all the industrial units that are, you know, there's so many empty ones out here, it's unbelievable. And it's pathetic to sit here and watch it, but, you know, I'm just not for it. I'm sorry, but unless it can come in slowly or something, I'm gonna be against it. That's the way it's gonna be.
Yeah.
I have to chime
You're in
in?
the middle, you're.
way,
your
this
shoulders.
way, I don't know, man, it's a huge price tag.
Yeah.
And, whether or not, it can be burdened or not is a question for anyone coming out here to buy a home someday. And they're gonna look at that bottom dollar and can they afford it? I mean, it's tough. Even when you look at that chart, where do we wanna be on there? That's just one piece to the puzzle when you go to build, and this is not an easy one. Marcia, what type of phase-in were you thinking?
I'd be happy with 3 years. I mean, Dan has worked so hard, and he did an excellent job, and we do need everything that he's put down in here. And the monies amounts that he has here, those monies are necessary, I see that. But can we afford it? Can the next generation afford it? We all, it's not gonna make a whole lot of difference. You may be the biggest one, it may make a difference too. You may wanna upgrade, you may wanna buy a new home, I don't know, Bob's not gonna move. I don't think Tim's gonna move.
I can't afford
Bridget's
to.
not,
Yeah,
I'm gonna downsize if I do anything, so, you're the one that's gonna be stuck with all these fees, and our next generation, and I can't do it to them. I've been in real estate for 41 years, and I've seen what prices have done out here, and affordability, and you can only go so far. As Tim said, college graduates can't get a job, period. Even if they're driving to Orange County or wherever, it's difficult. Still, we're not into recovery yet. A lot of people like to think we are, and we are doing better, and our prices are up some. Average priced home in Wildomar is $323,000. How many kids out of college, even with a job, can afford that price home? They can't. They can't. Even though they want the parks and they may rent. We've got some beautiful apartments here in town. There may be some homes for rent. But even the rent has to cover the cost that the owner pays on their monthly mortgage. So there's no getting around it.
well,
I'd work well with a 3-year phase-in if we could do something like that.
you wanna make that a motion?
But how would that work? I don't
I
understand that.
just have a real problem with this
Input.
this concept. The concept is that if the house is $10,000 less in price, these people that don't have jobs can afford it. No, they can't.
It's not gonna be just 10,000, Bob. It will be way more than that, and it does make a difference. You look at the affordability index of how little it has to go up. Nathan, do you have any figures? We used to have them all the time. If it went up 10% or 5%, how many people were out of the marketplace, could not buy?
Because I'm hearing stories about people not having jobs, and then these are the people that are going to be impacted by our developer impact fees. They're not affording these houses. Somebody that has a job is affording them. So yes, I have a problem with this long-term phase-in.
Well, 3 years isn't that long.
Yeah, but considering we've already been waiting.
Let me ask you
Hold
one
on.
question, Bob.
Hold on,
Staff
hold on.
wants to give us a.
Staff wants to talk about the 3-year phase-in, and Marcia asked that question. Let's give staff the opportunity. Go ahead, Dave.
So one thing I would just want to clarify, the big increase is for the parks, I understand that, for the phase-in. In your motion, if you would consider also the transportation roads and signals, if we were to adopt the transportation road and signals immediately, in other words, within 60 days of this ordinance resolution, we would see a fee net decrease of $730 for single-family residents. Even though our fees are going up, we would stop collecting the $1447 for RBBD. So in your motion, if we're talking about a phase-in for parks, maybe you would please consider to do the streets and the signals immediately.
Immediately or in January?
Why not immediately? We
Okay,
can
I
start
just wanted to
saving
make
at
sure I was clear on
7:30, yeah.
what you wanted. And I don't have a problem with that.
I still don't understand how the 3-year phasing works. I don't get it.
Well, to me, especially on the amount for the parks, the first year would be a third of what the increase was going to be. The second year would be the other third, and then the third year would be the full amount. So it would give the builders some time. It would give the economy a chance to recover a little more than what it has. And 3 years may not make a huge difference. In 3 years, it still not may be affordable, but I can't do it right now. I don't want to.
I would say that probably the biggest goal that that this city would have in the next 2 years is really purchasing and acquiring land. And that could be really our focus for the next 2 years. The hope was that as we started collecting some park improvements now, sooner than later, by that third year, we'd be able to start doing some improvements to those parks. So that was really the concept of asking for you to start it in January.
And that's necessary. I don't disagree with your numbers or with what we want here in Wildomar. It's what can we afford right now, and not stopping development. I know 100 and some units were just approved in Lake Elsinore, not here. You know, and we've got to have them here. They've got to have a reason to want to come here, the same as the commercial.
Yeah.
They have to want to come here. We have to have an open door policy with them, and we have to be able to work with them.
By coming here, they need to pay for their share. And this is very
But this
difficult.
isn't just their share. We're all going to use those parks too, and we're not paying nothing for them. We're in our homes, we're set.
There's nothing we can do about that. And it is this is hard.
It is a hard decision, but you know, you've got yours already and they won't be able to get theirs. And the builders will not come here and build. Bob seems to think we're the last place or the only place and he'll have to come here. There's lots of places. Look at the land out in Menifee. Look around you. There are a lot of places to go to build besides Wildomar.
So is our goal just to maximize the number of houses that come here? Or is our goal a quality lifestyle?
It's a quality of lifestyle, but it can't be done overnight. It doesn't work that way.
I'm just telling you that it's almost a $4,000 increase just for parks. It's too much. We had the 4 land acquisition last time, it's $597, now it's $597, it's the same. But we're doing park improvements now, almost $4,000 per house. I mean,
Would you agree to phase the parks amount in over a 3-year
I think it's too much. I think out of all the things, the numbers I see, that's the highest one for
It is.
me. I think it's too much. I don't think it's, and it isn't fair. And yeah, we are already here, and we're not gonna have to pay any of that, but our children and our grandchildren will. And I think it's just too high, you know?
So
I know the quality of parks, I know we wanna have all that, but you know, there's other ways to raise money in a city. And if we're commercial friendly and stuff, and we have the houses here, the buildings here, the commercial comes in, we can use taxpayer dollars off of that to do these kind of improvements. I mean, that's what businesses actually do, you know, we don't just get money and it just comes in from all angles. We actually do that and use money out of each pot, so.
Dan, will you give me those amendments again, because I would like to make the motion with the transportation and
Sure.
starting right away and phasing the park amount in.
So what the modification would be, would adopt the transportation roads and transportation signals diffs at this point in time, effective tonight. We could modify the ordinance for that. It would effect be 60 days from
I was
tonight's
just going to say,
action.
I'm going to give them a little bit of time.
And then as part of that action, when that 60 days is up, the city would no longer collect the county's RBBD. So that would be the second part of that direction to staff. And then the third part of that action would be is to phase in the park improvements component over a period of time that you.
That is my motion.
Sorry, one more clarification, and then the park phase-in, would that start in January per what the resolution says now, or effective within 60 days, the phase-in?
My thought would be January.
Okay, just so that that's on the record, okay.
But if we're already phasing, why don't we just start everything in 60 days then? If we already waited so long, we're so far behind, and we should have changed these fees years ago, which I know, we debated this.
We weren't even here years ago, so.
7 years ago, we should have changed the fees.
We should have, but do the residents want that? Do they want the parks bad enough for everybody's taxes to be raised? I don't think so. And that's the only way that it's fair. Why should our kids pay for parks that we're all going to use and we're already here and we get a free ride? If the people here really want that plan to work, even with the new developers putting in that amount, it's going to be years before that's going to be realized and be able to be done. I want parks as bad as you do, Bridget. but it's something that everybody in this town needs to want and needs to pay for. $28 a year is nothing. It shouldn't be put on the developers, and then ultimately, the developers are the gamblers. They've got the money, they're putting it out there, and they're making the gamble. A lot of times, they're not even the builder. They're gonna get the project ready, and they're gonna have a builder build it. And then he's gonna add his amount on. Over here at Lennar, they've already gone up 14%. 14%, and only sold 22 houses. Since March, their prices are up 14%. And that's what they do. That's how they make their money. Their first phase is a little bit lower. Each phase comes in higher and higher and higher until the market can't take anymore. And then they don't come and they don't build. There's a lot of things going on right now in this city, a lot of developers getting things ready, but that doesn't mean the builder is there ready to build them. These developers, what, 50%, 60% of the time don't build a project, they sell it to a builder? They just get it ready. It's a long process to have it done. And I think new residents, yes, they need to pay their fair share, but so do we. And I don't know how to accomplish that. I told Dan I have not seen a genie in Wildomar yet. My wish will not be granted at this point, I'm sure. But that's the way, the fair and the righteous way to do it, so that our kids aren't impacted. Jake may want to own a home someday and not live with mom and dad, maybe not.
I don't know.
But you know, it's a really hard thing to do. I see it every day. I see these people come into the office with dreams in their eyes of owning their own home. And they go out and they look and they look and they finally maybe find something that's affordable and there's 10 offers on it. Because that's what everybody can afford. They can't go over here and buy these Lennar homes at $400,000. The people I see every day can maybe do $200, $250. Maybe, on a good day. Even with an FHA loan with a low down, that payment is still up there. A $250,000 house with the low interest rate that it is today is still going to require some down payment and some cost, and then be close to $2,000 a month, depending on the tax rate of where they are, with taxes, insurance,
But they
and
can't afford it now. I mean, that was what Bob's point was. If they can't afford it now, re-raising it, is it making them not afford it later? They can't afford it now.
yes, it will. They can afford the 200s and 250s. They can't afford some of the brand new ones.
So they can only
But we-
afford inexpensive houses in Wildomar?
Right now, that's the case. I mean, there's 22 that sold in the $400,000 range, 22 houses in Wildomar. The average sale price in Wildomar right now is $323,000. So that's not a low price, and yes, they are affording those, but they're not selling in droves. There's the lower end, the 200, the 250 that I'm talking about is the one that has 10 offers, that they're competing just to try to get a home. Can your kids go out and buy a home?
My kids are not gonna go out and buy a home in Wildomar because they're gonna look to see where they can afford a home.
That's right.
It's not gonna be in California.
That's a
It's
sad
not
fact.
It's not a
That's
matter of
sad fact.
Wildomar. They have to have jobs and they have to have a place where land is cheaper. So you need to be making a certain amount of money to make it in California, and I don't see why we have to increase the builder's profit so that we can
Bob,
build
that's
these
not
homes.
increasing his profit, not one bit.
Okay, so back to the phase in the,
Okay, I've made a motion. Is there a second?
okay, but,
Can you clarify your motion just so we can
Okay,
all
I
understand?
thought
Is it
Dan
TRS?
did. Dan,
You know, I can,
clarify for me, please.
if I can clarify for you, let me just get this resolution back up. What you would be voting on is the resolution, sections 1 through 5 would be unchanged. You would be making the findings that the CEQA and all those other elements are fine. It'd be section 6 that would be changing the effective date. It currently reads, this fee shall become effective on January 1st, 2016. We would strike that. We would say that the fee would be effective on August 10th, 2015 for the transportation roads and transportation signals components, and that starting January 1st, 2016, the park improvement fee would begin in a 3-year phase-in program.
so, but a third and a third, that's what I still understand. So like, are we going back to the January, so it's going to be January 2016, 1/3, to 2017, the second third?
Yes.
1/3 plus 1/3, and the 2017 is all 3/3.
Correct.
Yep.
That's the motion.
So moved.
Well, I'll second that. I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
All right, the motion passes for the resolution. What do we need to change?
Okay, well, hold on. Was that a 4-1?
Yes.
Bob was the only.
Bridget, I didn't see you vote, so were
She
you,
voted.
you were aye?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Bridget was in.
Motion carries 4-1.
On the ordinance, Dan, what that needs to change?
There would be no changes on, well, the ordinance would also have to change that it would be effective on August 10th, 2015.
All right, Marcia,
So moved.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.